Christmas 1915. Here we are. I'm standing in the doorway, just a bit of shelter here, for obvious reasons. There's a bit of shelling going on, of a section of British frontline trench somewhere in France, down in the Somme region. Now, what was it like? What was it like to be a soldier on the Western Front, Christmas 1915, the second Christmas of the war? Well, the first Christmas, the Christmas of 1914, is famous for the Christmas Truce. And that doesn't happen everywhere along the line, but it does in substantial areas. Men stop shooting one another, and the two sides climb out of their trenches, and they fraternise in no man's land. And gifts are exchanged. The famous football match, well, nobody really knows whether that took place or not. There are no eyewitness records of it. My particular view, for what it's worth, is that if you've got a few hundred blokes around, somebody's going to have a ball and there will be a kick around. Now, Christmas 1915 is different. The war has gone on further. Trench warfare has become very firmly the case on the Western Front. And the truce doesn't happen. I don't think there's the appetite for it, because if you think about it, there's been another year of war. And the realisation has come about that this war is not just going to last a few months. It will last for years. It's become more serious. The degree of killing, of attrition has increased. And I think by Christmas 1915, there just wasn't the appetite amongst the troops to go and climb out of their trenches, go into no man's land. I mean, some fairly ghastly new weapons have been introduced. Gas, used on the Western Front for the first time in May 1915, very much thought of as an inhuman weapon. Things like the flamethrower had come in. So, like I say, I don't think many men wanted to actually go and shake hands with the enemy, having experienced the sort of thing that these guys had. So, what's special about Christmas? Well, to begin with, the postal service got cranked up, so men would receive parcels from home. If you're an officer, you might get a nice hamper from Fortnum and Mason's. They made a point of selling things specifically for sending to the front line. But even everybody, ordinary blokes in the front line, would receive food parcels from home. And the rule, by and large, was these things were shared out. You're not just a soldier on your own, you're part of a section. That's 8 men. And you look to one another, they are your extended family. You depend on them. And when good things happen, like food parcels arriving, things like that, they get shared out, they get distributed amongst you and your mates. It was what the things you would sort of expect to receive, well, anything that would travel, really. So cake in tins, perhaps. Certainly lots and lots of cigarettes. Everybody smoked in those days. Just about chocolate, anything to really just bring the season up a little bit. And there was also the opportunity, particularly when you were back behind the lines, to communicate with your family. Now, there's the basic field postcard that they did send. That's nothing much. That just gives you the opportunity to tell them whether you're still alive, been wounded, in hospital, that sort of thing. It's just cross out what does not apply. But there was also the opportunity to purchase something a little bit better. This is an embroidered silk postcard, and it dates to, I think, 1916, this one, and it says, "A Merry Christmas," with a sprig of holly, a sprig of flowers. It's a pretty little thing. And these were manufactured in large quantities by the French, hundreds of thousands of them, and a great many were sent home by British soldiers to their families. It's mainly special occasions, things like Christmas and birthdays. But it does at least remind the guys at home that you're still there, you're still around. Our battalions, the Dorset Regiment, well, the 5th Battalion weren't actually on the Western Front at all. They had gone through the Gallipoli campaign, and they had had it very hard indeed. They'd suffered enormous casualties, particularly in the August offensives, and then the weather changed. I mean, everybody thinks about the Mediterranean as being, a lovely sunny place. It's not in October, November, December. And there were immense lashing rainstorms, blizzards, trenches flooded, guys going down with frostbite. The best Christmas present the Dorsets could have had was the one that they got. on the 19th of December, 5th Battalion Dorset Regiment, a fraction of its original strength was evacuated from Gallipoli to the island of Imbros. It's only a few miles distant. I mean, it wasn't particularly special there, but at least they were out of the fighting and they could look forward to a peaceful Christmas. On the Western Front, our 1st Battalion had been in the fray really from the start. Mons, Neuve-Chapelle, running through into 1915, Aubers Ridge, Festubert, they'd seen just about everything. And by Christmas 1915, they are relatively lucky. They again are out of the line. Not very distant, they just dropped back as far as a place called Bray, which is down the River Somme, but they are at least out of the immediate combat zone. Parcels arrive. The CO had managed to secure beer supplies and opened a wet canteen, better beer and cheaper than available in the local estaminets, and from somewhere they'd managed to get hold of a cow, so there was at least a supply of fresh milk. We're not entirely sure what form the celebrations took. We don't have a menu for Christmas lunch that day, but on these occasions generally the stops come out and there's an effort to just remind everyone that Christmas is here, and it's an opportunity to stop thinking about what's going to happen in a few days' time and you go back up to the front line again.